Hello everyone and welcome to our special series about the 2025 Annual Town Meeting. This series is designed to help inform residents about issues that are important to the town. Each segment is about a specific article or group of articles, so make sure you check in to find the issue that's important to you or to learn about all of the issues our town is facing. This next segment in our series about the 2025 Annual Town Meeting addresses cemetery improvements as proposed by the Cemetery Task Force. To better understand our cemetery improvements article, I'm joined by a couple experts. Why don't you introduce yourselves?
Thank you. I'm Gordon Means, the chair of the Cemetery Task Force.
And I'm James Hall. I'm the director of DPW and also cemetery.
I promise you, nobody knows more about the cemetery than these two, so you're in good hands here. So we're proposing some improvements to Green Cemetery. This request is for $40,000 to fund those improvements. Do you want to talk us through what those improvements would be so people can better understand it?
Sure. The Cemetery Task Force was put into place by the Select Board last year. So since last September, myself, Susan Richardson, Dana Booth have been analyzing the operations and the functions of the cemetery, mainly Green Cemetery, because the cemetery in the Central Burial Ground is not an active cemetery, if you will. And Green Cemetery became a really interesting project in that it showed us that it, over time, has assumed certain characteristics, as all cemeteries do, of the stated rules and policies, and then the exceptions that have to be made to accommodate people's wishes and things that go outside those policies. What we found is that the management of the cemetery depends on ancient ledgers, books, master maps, and things which don't always correlate and sometimes have conflicting information. And the layout of the cemetery is such that certain areas now are not able to accommodate their initial function, which is rows with headstones. There are some areas that can't accommodate headstones. We also found that the maintenance of records is on paper in Town Hall. There's no real backup, there's no future thinking going on right now to how we might preserve our historical information and pass it on to the next generation, as well as the next cemetery supervisor. The succession plan right now is one person to another, and if you look at some of the older books and ledgers and the exceptions that were made, passing that on would be very difficult, if not impossible.
And Jim, you brought some of those here, right?
I did. For example, this is the master sheet that I currently work off of in the D section, which is the most active section in the cemetery. And oftentimes, as you can see, it's very hard to decipher one grave from another, so I have to correlate that with the old ledgers from the past superintendent. And oftentimes there's no graves or there's no headstones on graves, so I'll have to measure back to an existing headstone and measure forward to try to find that one. The oldest cemetery book we have would be interments from the late 1800s, and this one is like severely falling apart, so these pages just come out one at a time, and if I don't keep them in order, we're in big trouble. Oftentimes I think with some sections in the cemetery, the C section, for example, we have a lot of open spaces, but the previous superintendent, who was acting for 49 years in town, mostly had it by memory and in these logbooks. So just conferring with him, some of these sections where we try to sell a grave or to do an interment, we run into large ledge. So part of this this warrant article covers ground penetrating radar as well, so that would help us determine, if there's anything there that we need to pre-excavate in order to sell a grave.
So you're showing us a lot of paper records. They're handwritten. In order to understand them, you would need to have some passing of knowledge from one superintendent to the next. We have we have scanned all these and we have you, and the cemeteries run very well, but I think the fear is if anything happened to these documents or scans or to you in our succession plan, that we wouldn't be able to continue that knowledge from superintendent to superintendent, and something might be lost. And it's a cemetery, so these are supposed to be eternal records.
Correct, and you know, for example, if these are kept in a fireproof safe in my office, if anything were to happen to these, the next person in line would have a super difficult time knowing where to sell available graves, knowing where to intern people in existing graves. So it's very difficult to decipher one from another, where the software would help tremendously. For example, this morning I was looking for a grave. It took me 2 hours to find it. Whereas if we had the software in place, all I'd have to do was type in a name and I'd find it in 2 minutes.
Well, not only
Be
that,
able to go right to it.
Jim, when you are doing all of that and reconciling the various pieces of information, not only is it a vast use of your time, but you may not come to the conclusion at that point that everything is safe. So you actually go out in the field and do a last test with a metal rod to ensure there's nothing underground that you haven't yet encountered in the books, right?
Correct. In existing graves where there's more than one interment that's already been in there, I have to take a metal prod and a hammer, basically, and hammer down until I hear the vault, and just keep going until I get to the edge of that vault. And then, you know, measure the correct distance to put either a cremation or a vault burial within that grave. So it's
My fear with that is you've helped, I know this sounds funny to people listening or watching, but you've helped bury many of the residents in the cemetery, so you have a working knowledge of where things are, which would help speed up that process of identifying these things. Mm-hmm. If the next superintendent didn't have that working knowledge or hadn't been here 30 years like you have, then not only would it take a long time to find, but they wouldn't have that background knowledge too.
Correct. I've been director for 2 years now, and I'm still learning the process. It didn't just come to me overnight. It was a long, arduous process with Gary's help, and I think I have it down pretty good now. But for me to take 2 years after being here 30 to still try and understand this, it would behoove us to get a system where somebody that takes over from me can come in, be able to just type in a name, know what section they're in, and it would narrow everything down, and be more efficient, be more accurate, and.
So thanks to Jim and the Cemetery Task Force, we have a well-defined problem, and this warrant article request is for $40,000 to help address it. So Gordon, what does a yes vote get residents who are considering this investment?
Well, the thing that comes to mind to me right away is we don't know right now, because of these ledgers and other master sheets perhaps holding conflicting information and the ledge that's out there, we don't know the capacity of the cemetery right now. If we were better able to utilize the ground through software, that would yield us not only a better use of the cemetery land, but also the knowledge of what the build-out date might be for the cemetery, and if needed, any kind of extension.
So we would get a software package that would allow us to capture these digital records. We would get mapping through drones and ground penetrating radar to understand where everything is. And this helps us with what you're talking about, which is continuity of services.
It does. The mapping that they do is phenomenal, actually. It not only takes into account what Jim's talking about, but the physical layout, as you said, the paper maps, the GIS maps, the drone maps. You have kind of a layered effect, and it's a beautiful rendering on the screen, so there's instantly a knowledge through the database there of what's available in what capacity. And as well, there's a handheld version that's available for people on the ground. Could be the ground crew or visitors.
When you got involved with the Cemetery Task Force, did you ever think you were going to know this much about the cemetery?
No, but it's been really fun and interesting, so I'm glad I did.
How about you, Jim? When you took this job, did you know you were going to be a cemetery expert?
I did not know that for sure, but I have to say that since the task force has been established, Gordon, Susan, and Dana have been tremendously dedicated to trying to get this notice to the select board in the town, and I think it would be very beneficial for everybody involved.
So I know the select board has recommended this investment, so has the finance committee. Any last recommendation from you as to why this is important. Just overall, why is this important for the town? Why should people consider this article?
Well, I think it's a treasure that we have in town, and it's often overlooked because it's over the hill in a way. And it's actually part of town's fabric and its civic pride. On Memorial Day and other days, we go down to Green Cemetery and honor those people that are there, not only veterans, but our Revolutionary veterans and others. And why now is important as well, because at any moment some of this could not go right. As Jim mentioned, these are very fragile old books. And the succession plan is very important. So there are a lot of reasons why this is a good time to do that, and I think the returns emotionally or for the town and to the people in town would be great.
All right, I'd like to thank you both for your effort on this, and we'll see you at town meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.